IVM.
Hello and welcome to Smile India with me, Shifa Maitra. Today, the news I have is all centered around Diwali. I hope you're having a wonderful Diwali. I believe it's actually the only time in the year you see people across the nation smiling and loving the annual Fun Fest. The festivities largely begin with Dhanteras, where people bring some metal home. It could range from jewelry to a new set of steel spoons. I find it a lovely occasion to gift myself something pretty. Now, let me tell you about someone who believed Diwali was not for him. Chandan works in a dhaba in Baroda and feels like he had no business celebrating the festival. That's because a couple of years ago he led a very different life. As a teenager, he looked forward to Diwali. He recalls the day he got home with his father carrying bags full of gifts and crackers. His mother had his favorite kheer ready for him. His sister and he spent time lighting the house. Just when they were about to start the puja, his father got a call. His close friend had a stroke, so father had to rush there. His mother and sister insisted on accompanying him since the families were close. Chandan was alone at home, and that's when he got to know that on the way back home, his family had met with an accident. That night, he lost his family. Heartbroken, he had to continue living. Soon, his uncle from the village came with his family to Ahmedabad to stay with him. Soon Chandan was treated badly in his own home and realized that it was the property they were interested in. It was a nightmare and he knew he could not live there. He ran away and got onto a train that got him to Baroda. Here he worked at a dhaba in the day and slept there at night. It was Diwali and he was tossing and turning all night. He just couldn't sleep. He heard a scream on the road outside and rushed out. An old feeble man had fallen down. Chandan helped him, gave him water, gave him his bag. The man was okay and asked Chandan to sit on the bench with him. He told Chandan that he lived in an old age home but stepped out every Diwali to see how beautiful Baroda looked. Chandan asked about his family. The man had lost his wife and his sons had turned him out. He said that in a matter of fact manner. Through the year, he saved a little each month and on Diwali bought boxes of sweets. These he distributed to people less fortunate than him and asked those people to smile and keep the hope. He gave Chandan a box and reminded him to smile. Life would get better. Next up is an incident that took place in a small town in Maharashtra. Amol Sainwar lived a simple life as a student, staying at home with his mother and sister. It was Choti Diwali, which is a day before the main festival. Amol could sense his mother and sister were upset. He got to know that there was just 5 rupees at home and they could not even buy sugar that Diwali. Amol was restless. Just then, he overheard his uncle say that at the petrol pump they were looking for part time electricians. He rushed there and got to know that his 2-day job would pay him 300 rupees. Amul regularly did odd jobs, so he knew the work. He wanted to complete the work in a day so he could make sure his family celebrated Diwali. He took no breaks to eat or rest and just had about an hour more to go when the contractor decided it was 8 at night, so they should stop. He asked everyone to come back the day after Diwali. He noticed that Amol was crestfallen, so he asked him to wait. He inspected his work and, impressed, gave him 3 crisp 100 rupee notes. He was sure the boy would come back and complete his work. Amol stopped at the hardware store, bought some paint, and rushed home beaming. His sister joined him in painting the house and they slept at 4 in the morning. That Diwali, Amol's family also ate sweets and lit diyas. Amol's faith in himself and his maker continued, and today he's at a senior position at a MNC in Dubai. What's lovely is that he also runs the Shiv Prabha Charitable Trust, which sponsors the education of needy children in his hometown. His contribution to ensuring a happy Diwali for all. Diwali is generally hard on people who are away from family. I remember once I was in another city and couldn't go home for Diwali. I did buy diyas and make a rangoli with flowers, but it wasn't the same. At work, a Bengali colleague sensed my angst and insisted I come to her place. There, we lit diyas, ate great food, sang songs, and I realized Diwali with family is special, even if you're not related by blood. Vimal Dev Vasudevan from Kerala spent every Diwali working, despite the fact that his family called him over each time. The night before Diwali, 2 years ago, he decided to go. He cancelled his work appointments, bought sweets and crackers, and smiled. The next morning, he drove home to the orphanage that was the only home he had known since he was 4 years old. He met Victor Sir, who ran the home. His teacher had aged, and Vimal instantly felt guilty for having been away so long. The place had given him so much. his closest friends, his ability to work hard, and his self confidence. The little inmates were curious, and he immediately became a kid with them. They loved the sweets and the gifts. Vimal helped in lighting diyas, and they all had a great meal together. Before leaving, Vimal asked Victor Sir for something. He said he'd like to sponsor 4 children, not just pay for their education for as long as they studied, but also money for whatever they wanted. Victor Sir smiled and asked, which 4? Vimal didn't look up and said, you decide. He left a check, and that Diwali, 4 children and Vimal got the family they always longed for. 2 days after Diwali is Bhai Dooj, where brothers and sisters celebrate each other. Here's news about a family where this celebration happened a month earlier. Sikha and her brother Deepak are residents of Betul in Madhya Pradesh. Sikha is a slow learner and she's extremely close to her brother Deepak. Once she got married, the house felt empty. Deepak runs a petrol pump. The family was thrilled when Sikha came home for the delivery of her first child. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. In some parts of the country, a girl's birth is not celebrated as much as a boy's. Deepak fell in love with his niece as soon as he saw her. The day she was born, Deepak put up a notice at his pump that everyone would get 10% extra fuel for free as he was celebrating the birth of a gorgeous girl in the family. This continued for the next 3 days. People thronged the pump and the little girl got blessings from strangers. Sikha, who was excited about the birth of her daughter, was now overjoyed with her brother's gesture. Truly amazing, I think. Deepak honored not just his own sister and niece, but made the entire town realize that celebrating the birth of a daughter is a real thing. That's it for today, and I'll be back next week with more delightful news from India. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and get vaccinated. For more interesting information on our country, please like and follow Good News Indians on Facebook. To hear more engaging podcasts, download the IVM app, go to the IVM website, or look for us wherever you get podcasts from. To stay in touch with me, you could look up Shifa Maitra on Twitter and Instagram. Since you heard and liked Smile India in English, you could check out our Hindi version too and recommend it to people who prefer podcasts in Hindi.
Hey everybody, it's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, DJ and Ashwin discuss how Pakistan won against India, ending its 29-year World Cup streak, and discuss some of the other matches from the Super 12 round of the T20 World Cup. On Agla Station Adulthood, learn all the skincare essentials with dermatologist Puneet Sarogi as Ritasha and Ayushi ask him about skincare routines. On Hans Fani, listen to an interesting story, Dustbin Mein Peak, about how the government targets the common man to divert people's attention from political corruption. On the Habit Coach Kannada podcast, Ashton introduces the concept of a sleep primer and how we can use it for better. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, Slay Coffee, Intel, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Oxfam India. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Tugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.